Hey everybody, welcome back to the Clinical Trials Guru.com. Thank you very much to the Guru Nation out there. This is Dan Sfera. I've got Luke Eddington. He's from an Australian CRO, although he's in Philly now, as you can see behind him. Right? Some of you may recognize that as Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So Luke is there, not because it's fun necessarily, right? But because DIA was just there in Philadelphia. So
Who said that's not fun, Dan?
it may not be fun. Some people kid and say Philly's not exactly an exotic location. I would have loved to have gone there, but yeah,
Well,
it was fun. I saw the pictures on Twitter. I see what you guys were up to, man. I'm actually upset I didn't go, but next year I'm glad we'll be in San Diego for bio.
that's that's right. Yeah, we're looking forward to finally meeting up. It should be good.
Yeah, yeah. So how was it? How was the IA this year?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, a lot of the same sort of thing, I suppose, that you normally see, but some new things. For us, it's really important to connect with the sort of the partners that we've had over the years, including EDC partners, and also other service providers as well, with labs and things like that. But yeah, I think there's pretty much DIA is a big mosh pit of service providers meeting up with each other and
Right.
uh, partnering and collaborating and trying to work out about being competitive in clinical trials. So
Yeah. Now, when you go to these kind of things, and I ask because there's a lot of startup companies out there that don't yet have the budget, but they will soon to be going to conferences because it could get quite expensive, especially if you're an exhibitor, right? I don't know if you guys were an exhibitor this year, if you just went.
yeah, well, we were exhibiting. It actually works out pretty well if you exhibit and you want to have a presence on the exhibit as well as attend the conference. So um, for us, that sort of worked out. But I think in some respects, it's also possibly good not to have an exhibit because it gives you a chance to move around the whole exhibit floor and
Right.
meet all of the different providers, and also attend all the presentations and listen to what people are talking about. So
Right.
yeah, it can be good, and can also be good not to have an exhibit.
Now, do you go mostly for the biz dev opportunities, or do you go for your existing relationships just to maintain those and continue building those, or both?
Well, probably a bit of both. I mean, for us, it's there's a lot of biotech companies and startup companies that are interested in Australia for all of the advantages in running clinical trials in Australia. There's regulatory speed. There's a 45% R&D cashback, and that's a cashback, I should say, rather than a tax incentive. Sometimes there's a confusion about what that means. Um, and also, there's an exchange rate advantage at the moment. So there's a lot of reasons that are good for companies to be coming to Australia, but
Right.
not so many of those sorts of companies are necessarily a DIA. It's more of more the service providers um, that are offering services to the sponsors that are running the trials. And there were quite a few sort of patient recruitment type companies
Yeah.
which seem to pop up a lot. And so yeah, there's a lot of new guys doing new things with apps and integrating wearables with EDC systems and things like that, which is interesting. But there's everything from sites to human resources people and CROs, and even some pharma companies attend that.
Yeah, and I want to get into that and some of the major themes. If you were able to get to any of the presentations and the keynotes, I definitely want to get back to recruitment. Brex, I'm personally curious. How would Brexit impact American companies wanting to do business in Australia, specifically clinical research, or it
I
has
don't.
no impact?
Well, I don't think it will have too much of an impact. I'm not sure. I think there's been a lot of talk on the news about Brexit. I'm not too sure how that'll work. Hopefully there'll be some benefit come out of it. I always hope for the benefits. But the reasons why Australia is good for running clinical trials aren't really connected to that, I don't believe.
Okay, good. Just wanted to know. And if anyone's interested in Australian clinical research, you can hit up Luke. I'll have links underneath this to your what? Do you want it to your Twitter? Go to your Twitter.
Yeah, you can contact me on Twitter
Okay.
at Luke_Eddington, or you can always contact our CRO, datafarmaustralia.com. So yeah, we're always just a click away.
Cool. Now,
Even though it takes about 24 hours for us to get here sometimes.
unless you're on the West Coast, sometimes we're up at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So it works pretty well when we're working with American companies. So, we work while you sleep.
Yeah, good. So were you able to go to any of the keynotes or the presentations?
I went to a couple of presentations. So some of the stuff was, pretty much what you'd normally expect about how CROs are connecting with sponsors and sites in different ways. So I think there's a lot more focus on everyone's always trying to innovate and try to make themselves competitive when it comes to how the relationships are built between the CROs and the sponsors, and also how the site relationships can be leveraged to make a successful trial. So there's also a bit of talk about direct to patient trials, or
Yeah.
I call them sort of patient driven or patient centric sort of trials,
Yeah.
or virtual clinical trials.
Yeah.
So that sort of stuff's interesting as well. And they've been talking about that for a while. So it's not necessarily new stuff, but I think we're getting sort of closer to a much greater adoption, because it's all about educating sort of, I suppose, sponsors about what's possible and what might work for their product, and or their product trial. So I think in some cases, some of the technologies aren't necessarily adopted straight away, because it
Right.
sort of takes a bit of time until the right project and the right opportunity comes along to really get it going. But I know for a fact they are sort of already in play, and the technology is there. It's just a matter of
Wow.
matching it up with the right project.
As someone who runs a CRO and someone like myself who has a CRO startup, how does that impact CROs? What do you think?
What exactly? Sorry.
The virtual trials, how do you think that would impact a CRO?
I'm not sure how much it'd impact a CRO, but I think the idea is that it's about access to data to make the trials work. There was talk about how much more data there currently is now out there, and I think there's some statistic that someone mentioned today about. I think there's a Google statistic where I think Google said something about there was 90% of the world's data has been generated in the last 2 years. So I thought that
Wow.
was an interesting one.
Yeah.
But imagine what's going to happen in the next 5 years. It's going to be
Insane. They're
ridiculous.
already talking about using virtual reality in some studies. Like, I mean, that stuff is coming. We're in
Yeah,
2016.
yeah.
We're
Someone had some of that there. That was cool. There was these little boxes you could look into and learn about the patient experience. And yeah, that's all here. It's just
That's all here. And
yeah.
so in one of our psych studies, they're not using that, but the vendor is talking about using that in the future trials where we're doing a lot of cognitive testing, where we have cognitive raters and the subjects are asked, these are typically for Alzheimer's, the subject's asked to count some money or to memorize a direction to a particular street address. Stuff like that, right? That we're doing on paper and having the patient repeat. Well, they're using VR to actually have them virtually do those tasks. So that stuff's already coming, guys. People think we're far away from that. We might be from a practical perspective, but it's already here in some cases. And look at this virtual trial stuff. I mean, I was talking to Craig Lipset from Pfizer about this back in 2010, right? And yeah, they had a few trials that didn't go so well doing the virtual trial, but they haven't given up on that because I think they can save a good deal of money and they don't have to deal with the sites necessarily. But that's not to say that all clinical trials are going to go the virtual trial route because I still think the majority of trials will need a site. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, I think that's right. In fact, if anything, my thought is that the virtual clinical trial of the patient initiated or driven type study where people pick it up, if anything, I think it'll probably open up more sites, and more doctors will become,
More doc, yeah.
overseers or investigators of the studies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it's interesting.
And it doesn't necessarily solve the recruitment problem. So I know early you mentioned recruitment. A lot of patient recruitment companies were there. What have you heard about that? What are they doing? What are some of the things that they're doing?
Well, there's obviously the types of companies that are very social media driven, and it's about, the different social media platforms and driving people to sites. There's also a number of interesting companies that are mining data or trying to become more strategically placed in clinics and
Okay.
hospitals to mine the information that's there to find people.
Okay.
Um, and then you look at other kinds of companies that are doing things with genetics and genetic testing and things like that. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, I think with the social media world and people being more out there, the education of people about what's available, you know, is much easier, and it's still something that everyone's trying to do a better job at
Yeah.
and get better at, so that you can have a better trial.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff coming up in that space too. But I can't talk about it yet, but we will soon, right? But that's very exciting to me, patient recruitment. Whoever can crack that problem, that's a instant billion with a B dollar company, and no one's been able to do it so far.
Yeah, I think the important thing as well is, patient recruitment is a study specific thing as well. So
Of
I think a
course.
lot a lot of people are sort of, I know the dream as well. I get it. It's sort of like, crack the problem with one size fits all type of plug and play type operation. But I think you've really got to look at the practical side of things in terms of getting patients in, and I think that's where the site factor is a real, and getting the really good sites. You don't necessarily have that as a major drama,
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Hmm.
um, in some cases, a paper advert might be just as good as a Facebook campaign or,
Sure.
or some other thing.
Yeah, or radio or TV. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool, man. So, did you get any new business out of DIA?
always.
Good, man. I like that, Luke. So it was worth your time. It's always worth your time to go, right?
Yeah, I think it's really nice to come to America, and I think I haven't been there that frequently, but I'm really enjoying it. We've got a really good reception from all the Americans, and it's often they think we're part of the Brit exit, but as soon as they realise we're not British, the conversation, especially in Philly now, it sort of gets to the point of discussing, Ben Simmons coming out. So we've got
Yeah.
the Australian basketballer has
The
been well
Lakers
received
really
here.
wanted him, but he went number one to Philly instead.
Yeah, so it's definitely a good vibe for the Aussies here, and we've been soaking up the culture and enjoying, or trying to find out where the best Philly cheesesteak was an interesting one. Everyone seems to have their own preference, and what sort of condiments to put on it, but I think we worked it out.
But you said that Geno's was overrated, right? Tourist trap?
No, no, hey.
No, no tourist trap?
No, well, we managed to go to this Pat's and Geno's, which is apparently more of a touristy operation. But
Right, right.
when we were there on the night, Geno's won out actually, so that was a better one. But
It looked
people are
better.
people are talking about Jim's. Apparently, Jim's on Fourth and South is good. We haven't got there
Okay.
to test it, and then other people are talking about Steve's, and I'm sure there's probably a Luke's and Dan's out there.
I'm sure there is. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
still need to go check it out. Awesome. But on Snapchat, Geno's looked a little bit better, just from the appearances of the sandwich.
Yeah,
All right.
it was.
Good
It
stuff,
definitely
man.
was.
I feel like we need to do more of these, and I think we will. Um, so anything else you want to add? Anything else? Any other key takeaways we haven't covered?
Nothing that jumps to mind straight away. It's a pretty long week. I think there's definitely a technique to being able to meet sort of a whole lot of people very quickly, and I think people are very used to sort of doing their research online and googling and emailing and things like that. But there's it's sort of you kind of you're using different muscles when you're sort of standing up all day and meeting and talking
Mm-hmm.
with people and understanding where they're from and what they're doing and what the opportunities might be, or how the possible collaboration could work.
Right.
So yeah, it's a tiring process, but that's where the Philly cheesesteaks come into play.
Well, next year I will not be at DAA, but I will be at Bio, which is during the same dates almost. So people almost have to choose. What are you going to do? I know you're going to San Diego, but are you also going to go to Chicago for DIA?
Yeah, we're going to clone a few people at our office and sort of just distribute them around America.
Good. So short end
But
of the
yeah,
stick goes to Chicago, and the
I'm
others go to Luke goes to San Diego.
yeah, I think if the surf's good in San Diego, let's do it.
It's always good.
Yeah,
Cool, man. I appreciate you coming on and giving everyone who wasn't there a chance to experience it in at least in some way, and to at least hear about some of the things going on. Because for some reason, DIA doesn't post videos of anything, which is I find it rather odd. But that's a topic for another video.
no worries.
Thank you, Luke, and thank you to the Guru Nation for watching. This is Dan and Luke from the Clinical Trials Guru.com. Take care and talk to you soon, Luke.
Cheers.